morning, everyone, and thank you once again for joining us. This is the Roundtable 2.0. My name is Fushiro Akinpade, the managing consultant of Isaac and Philip Consulting, and also the convener of the Roundtable. Thank you all for joining. We know there's so many other things that you could be doing this morning, but I'm glad that you're all here, and we truly, truly appreciate all your effort. We have some folks here who have been part of the Roundtable. Yinka, thank you for joining. And we have Ruth. These are alumni. And then we have Jade also joining us from Toronto, Ontario, Canada today, who was also a part of the Roundtable 1.0 and also a mentee in the program. But today we're talking about franchising 101 and how do we unlock wealth in franchising. I do not know anything about franchising, but today I have Mike Chodo here with us today, who is going to be speaking with us about franchising. Funny, Mike and I had spoken for the last, in actual fact, the first email I sent to Mike about joining this roundtable was about a year ago, around March 11, 2022. And at that time, we had not even started Roundtable 1.0. The Roundtable 1.0 session started, I think it was April 18th, but I sent an email to Mike March 11th last year just to get a feel, as I know at some point in the future of the Roundtable, I'm going to need you to speak about franchising. And gladly, we started the conversation, and all the way till now, we started talking every month. After that, every other month, then we came to every month, and then every other week. And at some point, we were like, okay, I think we out-talked ourselves. Let's just get it done. But I'm glad today that you are all joining. We have folks joining from all over the world right now. Yes, but we're glad that you joined. Tunji, please, if you don't mind, we'd like that you're joining. Please, if you can you put a profile picture to your settings and just put your name and where you're joining from? Because we're going to, fantastic. Tunji is even joining live. So what we'd like you to do is just put your first name and where you're joining from. All right, I'm not going to speak anything again. I'm going to allow Mike to take it over. Mike.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. And thank you all for being here and all of you that are here in person. So what I'd like to do is to kind of go around and ask everybody what would they like to hear today? Because I could talk about franchising for hours. I've been around franchising, just a little bit on me real quick. I've been around franchising since 1979. I owned a dozen Domino's pizza stores, and I've been approved with some other national franchise brands, owned some independent businesses. And I've been helping people find franchises as individuals looking for a business for 8 years. As a matter of fact, 8 years, speaking of anniversaries, 8 years this month.
Wow.
So I have quite a background. I've been I sort of feel like I've been in franchising basically my whole life, my whole adult life. And so I bring a lot to the table when I'm helping clients kind of think it through and look at what will work for them and what happens in the franchise industry. So rather than me give you a speech on some stuff or talk about things that maybe, or aspects that maybe you're interested or maybe you're not, let's run around the room real quick and just kind of give me something. And we're going to have somebody in funding who's going to be joining us, who's going to talk about, we give an overview of franchise funding, and we'll have some time to ask her a few questions. So we'll have that section covered. But just feel free to, maybe we'll start here, and just if you have something specific, you're like, I want to learn about this.
So my name is Tiwa, and I'll say I'm very fresh. I have no, there is no specific target. I'm very open. I've looked and I've researched a little bit about just owning, as simple as owning ATMs at a gas station to like a right. McDonald's franchise. So I've looked, but I haven't made the move. So again, I think I need more information. I need more insights about the process.
Okay, great.
Hello, my name is Yinka. I've talked about this with Mr. Poncho for a while. I never even knew he was gonna, bring this up as part of the, lectures that he's gonna, let people know about. I got to know about this franchising through the agency I worked with for 7 years. And there was a day they put something on that, and then they told me the money they were expecting then I didn't have. I just put it aside. It was something I have, by the side, and I really want to have an idea what I need to do how I need to go about it, what am I going to benefit from it, and what are the things I need to avoid when I'm going into it.
Thank you.
All right, my name is AK. Basically, I have actually researched a whole lot about franchising, vendor machine, ATM, and the 3 points where I have always been contending on how to go about it. First of all, it's how to get the ball rolling. I want to start it. How do I get the ball rolling? 1. Then 2, how do I keep the ball rolling? Because there's a different with because if I start it, how do I keep it rolling and try to maintain the business? And also, what are the risk factors that should always put in place when the business is rolling?
Well, so far we're up to 2.5 hours of me answering these questions.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ruth, and I just want to know, they've spoken most about everything, but I want to know, how do you bring a franchise from out of the country into the country? And what are the levels of involvement when it comes to franchise?
So you mean a franchise that's already established in another country and bringing it here?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go with Wale. You want to unmute yourself? What are your expectations of this session?
Just to learn about franchising opportunities, know what's out there, and know about opportunities you can take advantage of. That's all.
Thank you. Beraji, you want to unmute yourself? What do you think your expectations of this session will be today?
Yeah, I'm here from the knowledge perspective. I just want to understand the concept in itself. I think I'm coming from the perspective of trying to understand what Philip knows. At least if I understand 25% of what Philip knows, I think I'm good.
That's Mike. Mike, right?
Sorry, Mike.
You want to steal Mike's brain?
Yes, I think I want to pick up Mike's brain a little bit. So I just listen in and
43 years.
Exactly. Maybe 10 years out of 43 years. I'm good.
Let's go to Jade. What do you think your expectations of this session are today?
Okay, hello everyone. I really did not have anything planned as an expectation, but it will be good knowledge just to be aware of opportunities around if it comes up. So I think just I would like to know how to look out for opportunities and then when to know which one is the right opportunity for you. So that's my expectation.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Bukola.
Hi, everyone. This is Bukola. For my expectations, of business development for clients. So I'm hoping to learn how I can have some of my clients leverage on franchising.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Buki. Tunji, if you can, what are your expectations?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm here for the knowledge.
All right, great. Doni, if you can hear us now, and if you can unmute yourself, what are your expectations of this session today?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to meet you all, and really excited about this session. I think at the core, I just want to understand the end-to-end process for franchising. So that's the first. The second is understand how people scale, and would love to hear some success stories and challenges that one would face on this journey. And I think, as the last person mentioned, what are the opportunities that are current, whether it's at a small scale versus large. But yeah, really excited about this opportunity. So looking to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. All right, Mike.
All right.
Oh, wait, we have Toyin also. Toyin, what are your expectations of today's session?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I think for me, it's just the opportunities that lies within regards franchising. Majorly narrowing down to Nigeria, which is where I am, and just do's and don'ts for a successful business when it comes to franchising. That's it for me.
Say that again. What did you say?
The do's and the don'ts of franchising. Okay. All right. Thank you all. Over to you, Mike. You got it all.
Okay. If I miss anything, when we get to the questions, feel free to just say, hey, I also wanted to hear about this. So let's start with, there were some questions about kind of what the process looks like and finding and funding and the money needed and what do I need to do So what I do with people is I start by saying, okay, what is it? What are the components that you want in a business? It's one thing to say, oh, there's this sandwich shop down the road that's got lines out the door, but do you want to work with people at that age level, at that income level, at that pay level, at that many days of the week, those kinds of hours? So we start with kind of the components and break down, what is it that you really want? What kind of people do you want to work with? What kind of customers do you want? How do you want to get your customers? How much do you want to invest? What big company, small company? And there's a couple questions around the different small and big companies. And there's franchises that will range from under $100,000 all in. And when I say a number like all in, there's a one-time franchise fee. There's maybe some working capital in there. Everything it takes you theoretically to get to break even. So there are businesses, franchises that will be under 100,000. And if we break it down in two categories, brick and mortar and non-brick and mortar, non-brick and mortar could be under 100,000 to maybe $200,000-$300,000. Sometimes a little high if you're buying a big territory. That's sort of all in. Brick and mortar is more from 250 and up, a lot between 250 and 450,000. You typically need about $100,000 liquid for a brick and mortar and about $500,000 net worth, and about 60 or 75,000 on the non-brick and mortar liquid, and a couple $100,000 net worth. And those types of businesses could be, think about anything that comes to your home, whether it's roofing or flooring or water or painting. Water damage is what I meant, window treatments, the garage floors. I mean, there's so many, handyman services, kitchen cabinets. If you think of anything that comes to your house, there's a franchise for it. And then a lot of those also transfer over to commercial. And then when you get into brick and mortar, I represent hundreds of different companies. So it could be automotive, like a Meineke or Amco or something like that. It could be oil change. It could be food. It could be fitness. It could be nail salons. It could be, and then we can shift over to more like senior care. And then there's business to business consultings and trainings and cost management. And so there's a wide sort of variety of different sort of franchises that are out there in different types of price ranges. So our job would be together is to say, okay, what is it that you want? And all these businesses are going to have their, pain in the you-know-whats, and they're going to have their challenges. So what are the challenges in that business? What are the challenges in that industry? And how are they overcoming? And what are their strategies for it? And we talk to franchise owners, we talk to the company, we look at documents, we look at numbers, but then we talk to franchise owners. And we actually call it validation because we want them to validate what the company's telling us. So and they can tell us anything. So what are they saying about the business? Do they like it? Would they do it again? Are they making money? What's the ramp up time for them to get to the break even? So we go through a very extensive process when we're evaluating a franchise company, and it may be 3 months, it may be 4 months. We don't skip any steps. We take it step by step by step. And I personally stay with folks individually. We set up regular weekly calls. We talk about it. I've got all sorts of resources, from questions to ask to funding to legal, all the kinds of everything you would expect me to have to help you get all the way through the process. But we stay together, and I'm like, well, what about that? What do you think about that? Is that going to work for you in your life? And so we that's sort of the process that we go through. Risk factors. You're doing a business. You're not going to get away from risk. You can't do it. So, what we can do is, by going through the process like I'm talking about, starting with what really works for you. I do an assessment tool that tells me a little bit about you as your personality, and I really dig inside what makes you tick. What are you motivated by? Some people are motivated by just making money. Some people are building a business that just grows. Other people want to help people. Other people really want to give back. Other people just want something to make some money to keep them busy, have a nice lifestyle. They're on their 6th career in their life, and they just want to ride off into the sunset by making some money. So what is it for you? Other people, boom, we want to go full time. We're young, we want to build something, want to build an empire. So there's different angles of that. So, but in order, we start there, and then we do all those steps with the franchise company, including meeting them and going and see the business, and really looking at digging into the industry, digging into the company within the industry, digging into the people that are behind the company, so that you can't eliminate your risk, but you can reduce it by doing your homework the right way. And that's a very important part of the process. Getting the ball rolling is kind of what I'm talking about. So I go through my 100, 350, 400 franchises, and I may come to you and say, here's 8 or 9 that fit you. And here's why I'm saying that you might be interested in them. And you might say, okay, out of those, there's these 2 or 3 that I want to talk to. And you start the learning process. You start talking to these companies and you find out what they can do for you. What do they do on marketing? What do they do with their systems? How do they support you? What happens financially with them? What's the real cost of getting the build out and getting up and running? What's the time frame? What's the ramp up period to get to, so you stop putting money in the business? So I know some of you are business owners, you know what that is. You gotta get to that point, right, where you're pulling money out and not putting it in. So what does all that look like? And you evaluate that and you look at, you obviously wouldn't want to be building wagon wheels right now. So you look down the road and say, where do I think this industry is going to go? So all of those are part of the risk factor in getting the ball going. Keeping the ball rolling, one of the great things about franchising, and I love, is, and people don't necessarily think about this when they're looking in franchise, but I ran the Domino's Owners Association for 10 years. I've consulted with other groups, other big franchise groups, and how to communicate to the company, how to build a franchise association, an organization that not only brings in money, makes money, but it gives benefit to their members and communicates with the company. And so what you really want to do is to enjoy that a network that you have, because if we were all in the same franchise, we'd be sitting in this room talking about, well, you know what, I'm struggling with this. Well, you know what, if you tried this, well, I put this incentive program together and it's really been working for me. Or, oh, gas prices went up. Oh, well, here's how I'm handling that. And so we share best practices. And so you end up with friends around the country, around the world. And, you end up doing things. Sometimes you go on vacations with them, and you really develop this network of people that are dealing with the same issues you are, but you're not competing against each other. So you're able to share the best practices without fear of somebody sort of coming in and sort of taking your business away, if you will. So talk about the finance, the process. So there's a ton of, like I said, there's a ton of businesses out there, and they're like somebody asking about examples. Well, I've got Domino's people that have sold for millions of dollars. Matter of fact, my brother just sold for millions of dollars. He bought stores for me when I sold my stores, and so there are a lot of success stories. Oh yeah, because the camera will miss you up there. So there's a lot of success stories, but on the smaller end, matter of fact, there's somebody right here in Chicago who bought a franchise that involves spray installation and bat installation in houses and in attics and that. And at the end of his first year, he was netting for himself about $10,000 a month. And that total investment was about $300,000 for him. So even on that scale, there's that kind of money to be made. So it's not like you have to buy, you're talking about McDonald's. You don't have to buy a McDonald's to make a lot of money. A lot of these smaller franchises that are service oriented have a very high margin because you don't have a big cost of goods. Typically, you don't have a big rental that you're a space that you're renting. And so sometimes the cost structures are a lot different. And you're managing people differently. So it's kind of a different ballgame. So, and there are tons of success stories in all sorts of different industries. People say, what's a good franchise? Well, let's talk about what kind of industry. I can show you roofing companies that people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you think roofing, oh no, you got to be in roofing forever. No, you don't. No, you don't. Some of these franchise companies do so much to support and drive leads and help you with getting people and put appointments right on your calendar or your salesperson's calendars. And so there's so much support that can happen that until you get in and you look behind, under the hood, so to speak, to really see what's in these franchise companies and what they can do for you, you don't really know. So it's a fascinating world because it's gotten better and better and better and better because it's become more sophisticated. Technology has helped the franchise industry. Communication has helped the franchise industry. It's helped it be held more accountable. It's not like the old days where you can stuff somebody in a trunk and they never talk about it, right? Everybody's online, they're communicating, and so if there's a problem, it's easy to figure out. So it's actually to your advantage now with all of the resources to do your homework and to find out what's going on with franchises, which goes back to the risk factor, like you mentioned.
I get a quick question. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. So 2 questions. I walked in here and hoping you can answer those too. I've talked to people in the past working full-time. So I've heard that it's not advisable to have a full-time job and try to open up your own franchise.
So, great question. I would never say that the best path is, the best path, of course, is for you to be full-time in the business. There's no doubt about it. Now, there is a whole group of franchises. Every company I deal with, I communicate directly to them. There's terms in franchising like executive model or semi-absentee. But then you talk to the franchise companies and they're like, well, yeah, but that first year they really need to be in. Well, then they can't keep their job. So can they keep their job or not? That's the question, because that's what you want to know.
Exactly.
If you got a job, can I keep my job or not? Well, we call them KJs, keep your jobs. So I have a whole list of KJs that when I know somebody, that's what they want to do. And probably, by the way, 60% of all my clients do that. That's exactly what they do. They're keeping their jobs. It's very common. Now, do you sacrifice in the beginning? Is it a pain in the rump in the beginning? Is it overwhelming to some degree? Yes, of course it is, because you still have your full-time job and you got your family, whatever else is going on. Now you've added this whole thing. You got to stop. You got to go to training. You got to get this thing up and running. But 3 years down the road, you got a whole different life. And so that's what people are doing. They're looking and they're saying, well, how can I get myself out of needing another job in 3 years or 4 years? How can I do that? Because the average executive job nowadays is only lasting a few years. It's sad, right? I mean, it's sad. And so that's what I'm dealing with, is people all day long that I want to do another one, but they have some money put away and they're thinking down the road, like, how can I avoid having to do this again 3 more times in my life? How can I build a business? So it's very possible to do that. I would not say that being fully involved is, I don't know why I'm doing this negative thing. All the students are messing me up. But the bottom line is you're better off to be full-time. But like I said, probably 60% of all the people I deal with that buy franchises through me helping them do it and still have their job. So it's very well, it can be done. Some people say, oh, I know somebody who did it and they failed. I know people in Domino's that lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I also know people that have sold their businesses and sailed around the world for 10 years. So, and every company is going to have some people don't get out of bed. Some people are going to be super successful no matter what. But overall, the franchise industry is designed for somebody who gets out of bed, follows the system, doesn't have to be the superstar, but is a good, hardworking individual with good ethics and fits the culture of the company and takes care of their people and takes care of their customers to succeed. And that's kind of the way the system is really set up.
So the other part of my question will be, would you recommend? I've never worked at a pizza shop. I've never delivered pizza. I've never done anything with pizza. So walking into Domino's and saying I want to own a franchise, will that be something possible? Because you have no clue on how it works.
Food is one of the toughest areas to not have experience in. Probably 90% of everybody who buys a franchise has no experience in that industry. What we look for is transferable skills. What are your skills? What have you done in your life? Have you managed people? Have you driven budgets? Have you done sales? What kind of sales have you done? If I talk to somebody and I start out by almost like making somebody convince me that it's worth me spending my time with them because they really would go through and get to the end. And after doing this specifically for 8 years, I know a few things about how it works. And I think that people really have to know sort of themselves and be at a point where they're old enough but young enough. You still have to have some go in the tank, but you have enough experience that you don't want to repeat getting another job. You do have some transferable skills. You have managed people. You do have confidence in your ability. And there's something else I was going to say about that. If somebody's been sitting in a cubicle, doing books, no offense, but just doing books and sitting in a cubicle and never managed anybody, I would really be challenging to them. And I would never send them to food because that's a whole different ballgame. Now, I've been around food my whole life. It doesn't bother me. Yes, there's moving parts and yes, there's turnover, but it's just, I grew up with that. So to me, it's like, it's normal. But most people haven't been in food, don't go into food. And people get afraid of it, and for good reason, just because there's easier ways to do it with less moving parts. There's just a lot of moving parts. Do's and don'ts on opportunities: don't rush. Do take your time. I insist if people are going to work with me that we go through the process, that we don't shortchange it. You don't skip talking to franchise owners. You don't skip doing a good pro forma on what you think the numbers are going to be. You don't skip going and meeting the people. You don't skip going and visiting the business. You don't skip getting all the information they're going to tell you on the industry and where it's going and how their company fits in, but you're also going to want to do your own research. And so you need to do a combination of, you can't just do all your own. You know, sometimes people will say, oh, well, I appreciate you showing me these companies. I'm going to go figure out which one works for me, and I'm going to look them all up. But you don't, until you get under the hood with these companies, these people that I introduce you to are the people who are paid to give you information. I don't deal with people that are going to pressure you or salespeople. I do this at a high level. They go out the door. And we don't do it. And I work with a whole group of people. We communicate. That's not what we want. I don't want anybody that's working with me to feel pressure that then they have to, you know, oh gosh, I got to make a decision. They're pressuring me. Now, at some point, you have enough information. You've gone to meet with the people. You've done your homework. We've got all the questions answered. And I will be asking, what else? What else is holding you back? What else do you want to know? What else is really, do you feel like you need to understand before you can make a decision, whatever that decision is? And some people spend 3-4 months with me, even sometimes longer, get all the way through the end and decide not to do it or take a job. But that's just part of the game. And sometimes people will work with me. Matter of fact, just yesterday, somebody who I've been working with said, now that I've worked with you and I've looked at these other companies, I've decided I want to go back this way, the direction that I was before in my life, which is fine because, you know, to me, life is big and broad and we're all here and we're all one and we all are connected. And it's not about today, right now, the money. And so if that helps people to kind of make a decision on where to go in their life, great.
Does it vary from state to state, or franchising will be franchising across the board?
Yes and no. Franchising will be franchising across the board, but there are different requirements in different types of businesses. Like if it's some sort of medical business or therapy business, there can be different, some construction, there'll be different requirements and different licensing requirements in different states. So that can happen. But overall, they try to keep it across the board. But some companies, like a company that does window tinting on cars. Well, we don't have so much of that in Chicago, but you get down south, and right, if you're in Arizona or Florida, everybody's got their cars blacked out, right? But up here, not so much, unless you're looking cool. But I haven't got that part down yet. But yeah, so there are variations, and some companies will start and they want to do regional. They want to start close to themselves and build. But most of the companies that I work with are going across the country. I think I got to the end-to-end process. Scaling, you scale a few ways. One, people will buy multiple units up front. So you pay a franchise fee, non-refundable franchise fee. It might be $35,000 for each additional. And you say, okay, I want 3 units of this that I want to build. I want to build 3 of these auto repair places or whatever. So you pay that, and then you build one, you build another, and you build another. That's one way to scale. Another way to scale is you do a territory business, like maybe I'm doing roofing or something, and I buy multiple territories. Another way that people scale in franchising, people don't come in and own 100 McDonald's or they don't own 80 Domino's store. That's not how they don't come in and buy an 80 pack. They come in and they might have 10 stores or 6 stores or 4. Some of them start with 1 and end up with 100. And they built that store, and then they say, okay, my neighbor wants to sell, I'll buy him, and I'm doing really well, I'll buy him or her, and okay, they want to sell. This group wants to sell, and then they chunk up. So that's one of the big ways that franchises scale, and most of that happens internally because you already know the company, you already know the systems, and you may know the fellow franchisee that wants to sell who comes to you and says, hey, you know, I'm thinking about getting out. I'm thinking of retiring, or I'm sick, or I'm getting divorced, or whatever the reason is. I want to move to Florida and retire and darken out my windows. So whatever it is, there's a lot of that movement that goes on. So people who end up with 20, 30, 40 locations of something typically started a long time ago and built and built and built. Unless you have a ton of money and you're coming in and buying a big area. But that's much more the exception than the rule, for sure. Most people start small and build.
So let me ask a question, Mike. So with what you're saying on the capital outlay it requires and all all the funding, and I know that we're still going to get to a session with Mona, who's just joined about funding. Have you seen instances where people come together to go all the way into franchising? Being able to spread the risk, being able to
You mean like partnerships?
Yeah, partnerships.
Yes. Yeah, partnerships are common in franchising. What we get nervous about when we're looking at partnerships is if you say, oh, I'm going to be the mouthpiece and I'm going to start looking for my group. And then if I find something, then I'll bring the group in. Lots of times what ends up happening for those of us that have been around for a long time in this industry doing this is that maybe what you're communicating to them and what you're seeing and you're going, wow, this company really sounds good, isn't getting conveyed enough to those people. And the franchise companies have spent all this time with you, and then you bring a partner in late. And now they're like, oh gosh, or it's like a spouse coming in late going, wait a minute, what about this? Well, we did that 6 phone calls ago. So that becomes a little bit of an issue. But if you have a partnership and you come in, I insist that if there's going to be a partnership, you have to come in. Maybe you can have 1 call with me or something, but if you're going to start talking to franchise companies, you both need to be there, or all of you need to be there. Otherwise, it's got such a small chance of working and such a big chance of there being miscommunication amongst you guys. And somebody likes this, but they didn't communicate that. And so, well, I don't want to do that. Well, we do, but I don't. And so it kind of falls apart. So everybody's kind of got to be together. But yes, people will do that to spread the risk, and not just spread the risk, but you get more intellectual property. You bring expertise. So maybe you and I together would work better than me because I got some faults. I got some weaknesses, the areas that I don't necessarily like to do. And other ways that I'm pretty good. So I think you look at that partnership, you want to be thinking not just in terms of who can fund with me and share, but what they bring to the table. Even if they're going to be a silent partner and not involved in the operation, is their experience level? Can they help you from afar to think things through and make solid decisions and all that? So, yeah, when you're doing a partnership, you want to make sure that you combine that other than just the money.
Okay, I want to ask a question. It's like if you're buying a franchise into a company and you've already paid the money, are they still going to be there with you, supporting you when you're trying to build up your business, or are they just going to leave you to yourself?
Yeah, we don't work with companies that leave you to yourself. No, that's what you're paying for. You pay in a franchise system. You have the franchisor, who's the company who has the concept, and the franchisee. That would be like you as you bought one. Mm-hmm. The franchisor has no benefit by you failing. Anybody who's looking, like remember I talked about talking to franchisees and validating. Those individuals, as you talk to them, and you also get a list of people who have left. You can call the people who have left and say, why did you leave? Well, they weren't supporting me good enough. And you'll hear that. And with that validation part, a lot of deals fall through on that, because if that's not going good, then the company's got issues. So that's part of the, like you asked about the risk, that's part of reducing the risk, is making sure that you do that. But the companies have a vested interest in you succeeding. People say, oh, I got to pay a $50,000 franchise fee. The company's getting rich. No, they're not making any money off of that. They're training you. They have their people. They've got the sales process to go through and all that. So they're not making money off of that. Where they make money is long-term royalties, because you're paying a royalty and an advertising ongoing weekly. So that's where they're really making their money. That's where they get big and powerful. So they have no benefit by not supporting. Now you have to look at these companies, because a smaller company, how well are they supporting the, if they've got 2 stores in Boston and you open in California, how well are they going to be able to support you? But we go through that process and we talk about that and we address that and see if it passes sort of, the BS meter for you. Yeah. Bring in a franchise from another country. I will not say that I'm an expert at that, because I'm not. I do have people who do that. I know attorneys that do that. As a matter of fact, I actually have a stepsister who is a big international attorney who helps with that kind of thing. And so, but it happens all the time, and vice versa, going out of the U.S. So it really would be an individual case. If you have an idea, we should get together and talk about it. And I can put you in touch with people who are real experts at bringing, because there are specific things you need to know bringing it in. And you want to make sure that you get with experts that can help you navigate all the legalities and everything to come into the country. Yeah, but it's done and it's possible for sure.
you mentioned something about costs. So I wanted to ask, what are the recurring costs, like fees that you keep paying? You mentioned something about advertisements, that you pay royalties like monthly and all that.
Mm-hmm.
What as in does that involve every franchise, or is just some, or what one-off costs do you have to pay?
Great question. Every franchise company is going to have a royalty that they're going to charge you. Usually it's weekly. Usually it's fun. It's just transferred right out of your account, and an advertising percent. And that advertising percent is to develop national marketing that benefits everybody. The theory is everybody equally. They can't take that money and buy a car for the owner. That's specifically for advertisement. There are other ongoing costs. It could be technology, whatever. And what ends up happening is there is a document that's called the franchise disclosure document that all franchise companies are required by the Federal Trade Commission to provide you. So when they start to talk to you, they provide, it's the franchise disclosure document. People refer to it as the FDD for short. That's sort of the acronym. So the franchise disclosure document has 23 sections in it. They're called them items, but they're basically sections. And one of them talks about all of the ongoing costs with the franchise and what they are and what they're for. And so when you're going through the process of investigating and talking about your risk again, you're looking at all that so that you can budget and you can say, okay, this is going to be ongoing. This is startup. They'll show you the startup range, all the breakdown, everything from illegal insurance, build out everything, equipment, anything that you need in that startup, including the franchise fee, et cetera. So you're going to have a section on both of those. So you can see all that right up front. Out of all these questions, I tried to get to them.
While you're looking, we have a question. Mr. Philip, thank you for joining, sir.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
A basic question is, most franchises today are more like brick and mortar, like physical stores. Are there new opportunities coming out in the online area, or like a mix of brick and mortar and online that is a franchise? Is there anything that you know?
There are online franchises. There are franchises that are more individual communication to like companies, like a B2B type of an opportunity. There are also a lot of franchises, and I sort of touched on this, of like the flooring and the window treatments and everything that comes to your house, from handyman services and water restoration. And those are non-brick and mortar. Now, you may have to have a little flex space, depending on what it is. You may have to have a little industrial spot where you keep your vans and a little bit of equipment and that sort of thing. But you're not putting in an actual brick and mortar like Front and Main Street. So your costs are a lot lower. And when in order to scale with the brick and mortar, you're building another unit. Where with a non-brick and mortar, you might be having more territory, which costs less and is easier to develop. You're not dropping another $350,000 for another brick and mortar unit. Did that answer your question?
It does, thank you. Something I read somewhere is that's where the growth opportunity is. Is that true in your own estimation?
That is a great opportunity. There is a lot going on the internet. It's a different world now. It's just like if you think about T-shirts. Remember when T-shirts were around and you had to go either go to a concert or you go to the fair or somebody's got a booth and selling them. Well, now you get everything online. You can go find it, and so it's a whole different ball game. So any opportunities in that, of course, can get to the world instantly. There are. The franchise industry hasn't tackled that because not that there's not some that are doing it, but I think it's a little trickier to have it in a franchise. You need to be able to control. You need to have consistency. You need operations that are consistently. You need to be able to monitor, and everybody needs to have the fair opportunity and be able to communicate with each other in territory. And so when it gets to the internet, it starts to get a lot more sketchy. So I think it's a little bit more of a struggle for franchising when it just comes to the internet.
Thank you.
Does anyone else online have a question?
So did I say so much? You're baffled?
So, Mike, well, I'm not speaking for everybody, but more than 60% of us here are Africans and predominantly Nigerian Americans. Do you think franchising is within our reach? And I'm not saying it because I know you heard $350,000, $200,000. Those are some of the things that scares you out of the door when you hear that kind of big dollars. Do you think that it's out of reach?
I don't believe anything's out of reach. I think that out of reach is something that you accept within yourself. Now, there are requirements that everybody has for everything, right? For a spouse, for what we expect from our kids, what we want from a job, if we're hiring somebody, what you're doing with your businesses, and the people that you're working with. And the franchise industry is no different, and they have to be consistent. They have to be fair across the board to everybody. So they might say you need to have $75,000 liquid and $200,000 net worth. Beyond that, it's about, do you fit with the culture? Doesn't matter where you're from. I have not seen any way, shape, or form, any movement in any way that has any indication to me that it isn't just about, and I've done deals with all sorts of folks, it's just about, is this a good person? And do they fit with our culture? And do they have the skills? And the money, of course, you either have it or you don't. But do we feel like they'll be a good franchisee for us? That's what they're looking at. Now, if you don't have the money, if you don't have the money, a pair of shoes is out of reach. But I think that I wouldn't say the franchising is out of reach because you're new to America and you're maybe not comfortable with the systems. I would say get to know the systems and don't let it intimidate you. And if you want, I'll help you through it, and we can demystify it. But it's a big number. Some of those numbers are big numbers.
Can I say something?
Of course.
So the most Joy. Yes.
All right.
So I'm from India actually. Been living for 16 years. So you talking about out of the rich guys, right? Most of the Dunkin' Donuts and Subways, they are owned by Indians here.
Right.
Before 7 years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, you think these people? Some of the people don't even know English. They have money, like he said. They have money. Why? Because they bring it from India. They want to do the business. They only come in here because they know they can do the 9-to-5 job. Why? They don't have a qualification. They are not studied, but the business, he's talking about franchises. When you see top of the money-making thing, the business is number one. Because unlimited amount of money you can get. 9-to-5, you're never gonna get that.
That's absolutely right.
Franchises, right? These people, like we count as in United States and Indians own the business. Yeah, they start from the small. They do one Dunkin' Donut and then now they own 11 of them.
Yeah.
That's how they do it. They come up with a little money, they take risk, and it's not little money. They literally sell everything in India. Wow. And they bring all of the, because they know that rupees, they're going to convert in dollars, but in 2 years, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. They will double it. And then they start buying again from India. Now, it used to for 1,000, now it's $100,000, something like that. So that's how. It's nothing out of the reach. These people don't know English. They don't have a management skill either. But what they have we are cheap. So we love, like the money is just like tight. So they work around the budget and they really, most of the people work in our subways and they complain about the Indian owner because they think, oh, he's very cheap, he does like that. But that's how they make money. So nothing is out of the reach. I'm just saying.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you.
Hey, there you go. Another thing that I've seen, and we need to turn over to Mona in just a second here, is that they stick together. that they bring the family in,
Yeah.
that they're, I mean, I've worked with Indians that are buying franchises that are getting money from an uncle and getting money from a cousin. And so like when you talk about it, you guys come together, stick to the groups that stick together and support each other. And as they come through America, whether they're Irish or me being Italian, when years ago, when our family came, and I'm half Lithuanian, when that family came, the ones that stuck together are the ones that ended up to being successful. So lead the charge.
Absolutely. We have doing go for it.
Somebody else is going to ask a question.
Yeah, sorry, here, struggling to get off mute. That was thanks for the super helpful detail here and walkthrough. Just tactically, how does one get started? Like, what's the first step? And like, are you aware of any opportunities or deals here in Chicago?
Yes, there are always deals here in Chicago. Some are resales. There's always new builds that are available in Chicago. And as far as getting started, if you want, we can set up a time. We can jump on the phone for 30 minutes and we can talk about what you are thinking about doing. And I can kind of lay out more specifically what my process is. And if you want to go through it, we can go through it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, would love that.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Dwayne. Now we have a question from Jade, who is in from Canada. She's asked, do you also work with franchising in Canada? And then we have another one from Buki. It seems the franchisor takes most of the risk. What can we do to share such risks? And then we have Wale saying, what are the type of cost requirements for starting a franchise?
Okay, so yes to Canada. Is that, and I can't see it from here, is that saying about the franchisee takes the risk or the franchisor takes
the franchisor? So now I'm thinking the franchisor is the person selling the franchise now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the franchisor takes a tremendous risk, and they take a risk every time they sign up a new franchisee that they'll be successful, because they're either going to hurt their brand or help their brand. It's just like, with your business. Every time a customer comes in, it's either very good or very bad for your business. And so it's the same thing with a franchise company, and they spend a lot of money and put themselves out there, and they work a lot harder than the franchisees overall, and it's a much bigger commitment. We're as franchisees, we can kind of come, we can be here for a while, and we can go. They're stuck, basically. And then the cost, if it's going back to the brick and mortar, non-brick and mortar, if it's brick and mortar, the total project cost, like I talked about with the franchise fee, and basically the theory is to get to break even. It might be $250, it might be $450. There's a lot in that range, and it can go over $1 million. And then with the non-brick and mortar, there's a lot in the $100,000 to $300,000, $350,000 range. And in that area, you're going to typically need $75,000 liquid, maybe a couple hundred net worth, and then be able to get the rest of the money and have living expenses for the first year. That you always want to be thinking about that when you're doing this. And then on the brick and mortar side, you're going to need at least $100,000 liquid capital available and $500,000 net worth as a general rule. So
yeah, and that's what sends you out of the door.
I know, but it's like what you're talking about. People start small. People start with vending machines. They start with the ATMs. They start with that, or they pool their money together and we say, well, let's all go in on this and we'll all work it. We'll keep labor down and we'll build. It's not just, sitting back having a bunch of money. And a lot of people that are buying franchises are in their 50s. They've worked for a lot of years. They've got their 401k that they've built up over, 25 years plus. And so it's not, it's not a bunch of people that, somebody's handing them money. People have worked a long time to put it together.
Our generation wants to do things very quickly. We're not gonna wait like our parents.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
So we're gonna get to another session right now. So we have one more question, and then we'll go to Mona. Is there a database to get information on the different types of franchises and what the requirements and ROI will be, return on investment?
ROI is very difficult because the Federal Trade Commission restricts franchise companies from talking about income that you can make, because I can't go to you and say, oh man, come on, you'll make $300,000 a year off of this. That's not, I can't say that. and neither can a franchise company. There is a section in that franchise disclosure document that I talked about that can address money and can address sales and can address profits if they want to choose to put it in there, and then they can talk about that. But they have to be very careful. That's one of the reasons you talk to the franchise owners, because they can tell you anything. The Federal Trade Commission restricts me and restricts the franchise company. But, you know, I can give you a sense, like if you say, well, I need to make $100,000, I can bring you franchises that I know people are making that much money, and as opposed to the best franchisees are making 50. Well, why would I do that if you want to make 100? But I can't say you're going to make this. I don't know if you're going to get out of bed. I don't know if you're going to follow the system, you know, that kind of stuff. You want to, and then with, as far as getting with me, if you want to shoot your information to Funsto, then I can reach out to you and or at the end, if you want, we can just set up a time. So I want to introduce Mona. Can I do that now?
Yes.
Okay,
well,
so
you haven't completed the job by letting us know how we can contact you.
Okay.
We'll take care of that.
So at the very end, I'm going to give you all a gift, a present that will have my information in it. It's also a book that a great friend of mine wrote on franchising. It was an Amazon bestseller, and so I'm going to give you that on franchising before you leave. So you'll have my information, and we can always set up a time even now before you go, because I'll stay afterwards if anybody has any individual questions or whatever. So Mona is a gem for me. Mona is a consultant in the franchise funding area. She's been dealing with franchise funding and worked for a number of different companies that does franchise funding over a 30-year period. And I send all my people to Mona, and she takes you and says, okay, what is it that you're thinking? What are you looking for? And she brings you in confidentially and then can show you kind of what sort of options are out there for you when it comes to the funding, because she's an expert at that and the rules are changing all the time. And so she stays on top of that. So let me introduce Mona to kind of give you an overview of ways to fund. Websites, if you send me your information, I can send you an email that will have a couple websites. But there are, I mean, people say, what are the best franchises? Go look around. I mean, everybody's got a list, but it depends on what. It's like, what's the best vehicle? For what? What are you doing? Are you hauling a bunch of kids? Are you want to be, you know, looking cool with the darkened windows in a sports car? What are you doing with it?